Hello everyone. One day I went surfing and I had taken 5 practice surf lessons prior to that. So I felt I was ready to go out on my own, and I rented my board and hit the water. And one might say I was overconfident. It was my goal to reach the back waves, the big white water waves in the back. So I hit the water and paddled as hard as I could. I paddled with all my strength to reach the big waves. And once I had gotten out there, my arms felt like jelly. And then it sort of dawned on me as I looked around that I was all alone. There was no one around me. In fact, the current had taken me off to the side, away from the other surfers. And then I thought to myself, this might not have been the best idea. The waves started forming, and they were way bigger than what I was used to, and they kept hitting me and knocking me off my board, and I went underwater. It was a horrible experience. I simply wasn't ready yet for these big waves. Thank God my board was attached to my ankle by a rope, otherwise I would surely have been lost. So I started fearing for my life. I thought I could die out here, but I don't want to die. I have to do something. So I did what I was taught in my surf practice lessons. I raised my arm up and I held it up for what seemed like eternity, but it must have been like 1 minute in reality. And nothing happened. So I quickly gave up on that. I think I would have had to wait a long time for anything to happen. So I knew that I had to get out of this on my own. I wasn't ready to die. I thought to myself, I cannot die. I'm not ready to die. I'm not ready to die. I really feared for my life. And what I did was I grabbed my board as hard as I could and put my feet on the board. So I lay on my board and just hoped and prayed that the wave would carry me forward instead of knocking me off. So I kept my eyes focused in front and didn't look behind me. And as I felt the wave forming and lifting me up, and then I felt it break and hit me hard. It hit me hard on my back. But this time it didn't knock me off because I held on as hard as I could. And the wave carried me forward, and I was so glad. But then the wave started slowing down. It started dying. And then I realized, uh-oh, I will have to repeat this process since I'm nowhere near the beach yet. And keep in mind, I was just too weak from all the paddling to do anything besides laying on my board. But just before the wave slowed down fully, I can't be sure because I didn't look behind me, another wave came up and carried the wave on forward, further on. And then I slowed down again, but just like last time, another wave came up behind it and carried me further. And that kept happening like 2 or 3 times until I reached the beach. So it was like one continuous wave carried me all the way to the beach. And I don't think that happens naturally. I don't think that happens very often. So I felt like that was my first experience with God. I felt God had rescued me. And once I crawled onto the beach, exhausted as I was, I immediately thanked God for what he had done. I felt like God had rescued me, and I thanked God, and I told him that I would repay this debt that I owed him now someday. And a few years passed and nothing happened. I didn't become a Christian at that time. And then all of a sudden my brother became a Christian by watching some street preaching videos on YouTube. And he told me that he repented of his sins and became a born-again Christian. And I was like, what? What are you doing? Are you crazy? That was my reaction to it. And in fact, I felt very annoyed with him, almost angry, because we used to do things together, like play video games together, but now he didn't want to do that anymore. So I felt annoyed with him. But I think that's the natural reaction of an unbeliever who lives in darkness. But I still kept drowning out reality because life seemed hopeless to me at that time. I remember looking back on it, I had no purpose, I had no meaning, I had no significance in life. The only thing that seemed to make sense was pleasure, so I indulged myself in all sorts of pleasures. I played video games from morning till evening, and I watched pornography. Obviously, in hindsight, I realize now that that cannot fully satisfy. All the pleasures in the world cannot fully satisfy. They may satisfy you temporarily, but never fully. There's always something you'll crave more and more. You'll want more and more. It's like an addiction. When I played video games, sometimes it wasn't even fun, but I did it anyway to distract myself from reality. And I kept looking for the newest game in order to feed my addiction, you know? Anyway, my brother bought me a Bible for my birthday, and I thought, okay, I'll just put that here and never read it. But he kept nagging at me to read at least one page a day, so I slowly succumbed to all the pressure, and I opened up the Gospels and I read one page of the Gospels a day until I made my way slowly through the Gospels. And as I was reading this, I remember thinking that what Jesus was saying is quite radical. If it's true that what he was saying, that he's the only way to God, that there's a heaven and a hell, and that there's a judgment, then that would have drastic implications on my life. And that would have to mean I would have to change my life. And I didn't want to do that, so I kept pushing those thoughts aside. But at the same time, I also felt attracted to the person of Jesus. And that attraction grew over time, to the point where I finally attended church with my brother. And this pastor at church had brought with him some teenagers who have had pasts in crime, alcoholism, and also video games and pornography, just like myself. And these teenagers shared their testimony with everyone on stage, and how they overcame their addiction, how they had been freed from their bondage through Jesus Christ. And that really resonated with me. In fact, as they were sharing the testimony, for the first time in my life, I felt this guilt come upon me. I felt I had sinned against God. One might say God pierced me to the heart and convicted me of my sin that very night. And after I had talked with the teenagers and made some friends, that very same night, as I got home, I deleted all the pornography I had on my computer. And it was the best thing I ever did. Looking back on it, I haven't watched it since, and I feel great. And a short time after that, I fully gave my life to the Lord. I remember kneeling down in the bathroom and praying to God. And I remember thanking Jesus for paying for my sins and asking him to come into my heart. And that was that. That's how I became a born-again Christian. And after that point, my desires changed. I no longer wanted to do the things I had done previously. I no longer wanted to indulge myself in all the worldly pleasures. Instead, I wanted to serve God. I wanted to do what is pleasing to God. I felt full satisfaction for the first time in my life. I think God is the only thing that can fully satisfy. So now I no longer play video games. I no longer watch pornography. Instead, I educate myself. I read the Bible every day. And life couldn't be any better. I now have purpose, significance, and meaning in my life. I know what our purpose is on this earth. I know where I'm going to go after I die. And one more thing. Initially, I accepted Christianity by faith. That is to say, because of a personal experience. But as I grew up in the faith, I started investigating the evidence for it. And doing that only reinforced my belief in Christianity. In fact, Christianity has a surprising amount of evidence behind it. Like, the historicity of Jesus is extraordinarily strong, as well as the evidence for the resurrection. So I want to encourage everyone watching this, if you are struggling with similar things, if you have an addiction that you cannot seem to get rid of, and if you are lacking purpose and meaning and significance in your life, then know that there is a way out. There is a way to overcome. Just ask God to reveal himself to you and give Jesus a try. Read the New Testament and see who Jesus really was. So I pray everyone watching this would be encouraged to seek after God, and he will make himself known to you. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.